Hello and welcome to Data Platform Summit 2020. We are virtual and around the clock. My name is Andreas Erben and I will talk to you about hackathons. We're talking about unleashing hidden potential in organizations and empower individuals. As I said, my name is Andreas Erben. I'm the CTO for Mixed Reality of DayNet and also the CEO of the Americas operations. I have over 25 years of experience, everything from cloud to mixed reality. I worked with all sizes and most types of companies, from startups to big enterprises. I do have an extensive enterprise background, and I really love geeky technology. I'm also a hackathon organizer, have been a participant, and a frequent mentor. My contact information is below, and I have also been recognized as a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional by Microsoft and as a Microsoft Regional Director. So our agenda today is, first of all, we're talking about what a hackathon is. Then we're looking at hackathons from an organizer perspective mostly. Then, what does it mean to have hackathons in organizations? What is relevant there? We cover the participant perspective on a hackathon, including how to be successful. And we're talking about some of my experiences in hackathons myself. So, what is a hackathon? First of all, we need to have a common denominator. Most hackathons are a time-boxed activity, meaning it has a start time and date and an end time and date. That sounds trivial, but it is not really. And then you're dealing with something you do not do in your daily job typically. It is limited in scope, such as topics or technologies. Maybe it's something you don't do ever, something you want to explore new, or it's a technology you have never seen before. And it is typically done in teams. So some of the examples of a coverage or types of hackathons could be you want to learn a new technology or introduce a new technology, then experience or practice that technology more. You maybe could consider designing a system, like a completely new type of IT system for your organization. You could generate or develop any type of idea. Then there could be processes that you want to change. Yes, hackathons can also cover non-technical aspects. It could be to even develop a business plan or solving organizational or societal social problems. I've seen, for example, hackathons that deal with how to do better healthcare policy. Let us look at the elements of a hackathon. From an organizer perspective, we have topics or considerations that range from how to do an idea pitch to content preparation. Don't worry, we will talk about those individual points step by step. The idea pitch is how to help participants with a topic selection. What you do is you encourage participants to present an idea of the project they want to pursue in a concise manner. A good pitch is typically 1 to 2 minutes max. As an organizer, your responsibility is to keep that time box fair for everybody. That could mean that you have to be harsh and sometimes cut people off. You can avoid that by being polite and introducing them to this concept and do a demo pitch for them. It is important to provide guidance to attendants before you do this idea pitch so that they can prepare for it. And then there are different ways. How do you select topics after the idea pitch has been presented? It could be through voting. It could be simply people committing to a project. They walk over and want to participate. Right? That's a good idea sometimes. Sometimes intervention by organizers may be necessary. For example, if nobody wants to do that one important project that you as an organization might care for, or if everybody wants to do the same topic and other things get neglected. If there is a big imbalance in the hackathon, that would not be good, right? So then it comes to team formation, and that follows up on what I just mentioned. What you want is to encourage a healthy mix. Teams need to have a mix of skills typically. If it's a technical hackathon, you want to have developers, maybe data scientists. You need subject matter experts of the problems you want to solve. You need to have the business people on board to make what you want to build maybe viable. And don't forget designers. You want the designers also to make things look good. We are at the data conference. Of course, you need our data experts and our data scientists. Some resources may be scarce. They might be less available than you need. It could be necessary to sometimes encourage teams to share a resource, or to, in a way, promote participants into more a mentoring role, helping multiple teams. For example, let's say there's only 2 designers, but 10 teams. All teams need a designer, and while the designers of course have a preference for a specific team, it might help the bigger good, if they would work a little bit with all teams. Then how do you do that, right? One approach is shown in that little picture on the right side, right? You could define for each idea slots. A team might have slots and healthy team sizes. You might not want to have less than 4 people, and maybe you don't want to have more than 7 people, because then it might become inefficient to organize a team. And then everybody can put a little sticker with their name to the team and also the skill sets they have. So it's relatively easy to see which team has what functions fulfilled. But then it's also very important to vote with your feet. If somebody has no interest at all to work in a specific team, then they're simply not a good team member. So sometimes you might accept a small imbalance in the teams and team composition rather than have people who don't care what they're working on. Now let us talk about the hack, doing it. The bad news is also the good news. There's no clear rules on how to execute. Teams can do things how they want. That is most of the times. Some of them might be very involved and they might even work the whole time, and if it's multi-day hackathon, they might stay overnight. They might organize themselves in an agile method with Scrum-like approaches and micro-sprints, and here have a task board with little sticky notes. That is actually pretty successful, to have small iterations and small goals you'll fulfill and clear visibility in what's happening. Overall, at the very beginning, if you're an organizer, you want to encourage all participants in all teams to learn about the available resources and plan to use them at the beginning. There's nothing worse than the last few hours of a hackathon will happen and then the teams start wondering, hey, how do I get my cloud resources? And then there's simply not enough time to set them up. At the end of a hackathon, you usually have a result presentation. Participants present what they built and created. Those presentations should be short. If possible, they're 3 to 8 minutes, depending on how many teams you have, including questions and answers. It is important to allow times for questions and answers. Logistics need to work flawlessly for that. It is also relevant to provide coaching during the hackathons, and organizers again need to keep their time box fair. Without the result presentation, there's no way for other people to know what participants have been doing, what they solved, what may be issues, and what the vision is. It will also be super important for judging the results. Mentoring is probably the most important aspect in many hackathons. Without mentors, you might have a lot of people who have no idea or no direction or no clue what they're working on. They can provide insight to participants and give relevant perspectives and aspects and so on, from business to technical or subject matter expertise. That could be hands-on mentoring or any type of consultant role. Sometimes the mentor might be an expert in a specific technology and provide some building blocks or frameworks to develop specific difficult-to-write code for beginners, such as database access code that for a new database system that nobody ever has seen before. Let the mentor take care of the plumbing. So some example, again, for areas of mentoring are the subject matters. That could be medicine, engineering, or anything like that. The information technology, software development, database systems, and so on. A more overview architecture, systems or software architecture. Legal mentors might be relevant. Like if you're talking about introducing a new system to track personal identifiable data, maybe you need to think about software privacy laws, data privacy laws in a specific geography. And finally, market and business mentorship is super important if your hackathon has any consideration to be relevant for business. For very complex topics, right? With strong technology dependency, as I said before, consider maybe assigning an embedded technology mentor per team. You could pre-plan that. Like if you want to have a hackathon that focuses on a technology topic, let's say a new database release, and people should build exciting stuff around that new database release, then let's embed some experts in each team. The jury, right? As I said, often hackathons have a jury, and that is to determine a winner or things that are worth to pursue. A jury would select the winning proposal and is composed of subject matter experts in the judging criteria. Judging criteria can be quite complex. And how do you do the judging as a juror, right? A judge might float in the hackathon and just talk to different teams and get an idea what people are working on. But typically the jury receives a final formal presentation that I mentioned before. And in some cases that is the only input they get. In some cases jurors might be pretty high profile. They might be celebrities or business angels or even government officials if it's a very high profile hackathon. But there's another very, very, very important function. Often it's not about winning a hackathon. A good judge's output lets your team learn and improve. If you only heard, okay, there's number 1, 2, 3 of the winners, it doesn't tell you why. Why did somebody win? What was wrong with the pitch? What was wrong with the technology or the idea? And maybe nothing was wrong, but you just couldn't get the point across. So the judge can provide different perspectives and viewpoints. They can give feedback, if possible, per juror individually on the different aspects where to improve. Be it business potential, be it the industry impact, or even things like the energy of a presenter. In that context, it is important to have a diverse group of judges who really reflect what is important for the specific hackathon, that they can even judge it. Staffing. If you run a hackathon, it's often a very involved matter. Of course, it could be just a few people getting together and starting to hack. But for the most successful hackathons, staffing is probably the most important task of the organizer. As I said, different hackathons have different requirements, but high-profile hackathons can have a staffing ratio of 1 to 3 or 50% easily. Like if you have 100 participants, you might have 50 people involved in staffing. There are a lot of staffing areas. The core organization team, the communications before, during and after, be it email, be it through Teams or Slack or other online channels, be it social media. Invitation and attendance management is also relevant, as well as capacity planning. The pure material logistics, where are the tables, where are the rooms, all those planning. Then things like technical troubleshooting and computer networking. Imagine you have nobody available and the Wi-Fi goes down and there's no Ethernet, no network. Technology-driven hackathons might have a big problem then. Do not underestimate catering coordination or lodging coordination. And we will get to that in a little bit when it comes to catering and lodging. Security, not for longer hackathons. You want to make sure that somebody has, let's say, the big stick to worst case kick a person out. And also, depending on where it is, that no unauthorized people can get in. Mentoring and jury coordination is relevant, so you want to select mentors, you want to select jurors, want to make sure they show up, have their windows when they help defined in time windows, time slots, and so on. And last but not least, cheerleading and motivation. hackathons are very, very energy intense. So on a 2 or 3 day hackathon, you need people who keep that energy level high, and there good staffing matters. Talk about materials. I call it also makerspace of 3D printing. Many great ideas include physical objects, be it Internet of Things, or improvements to work environment or medical innovation. 3D printing, for example, can be very useful and transformative. But you don't have time to start from zero. You need someone who is an expert in the materials and material available, technology guidance available on site. There's also traditional crafting or woodworking, even working with Play-Doh or clay or other types of materials that can be very material. Yes, can be material for the success of the hackathon sometimes, to be able to do like a dummy mock-up of your idea and that you can visualize in reality. For example, if you would want to build a new input device, you may want to know how it looks like, how it feels like. A suggestion here is to partner with an established makerspace if you have such a new area, or with other types of crafting or enthusiast groups. What is the right duration for hackathon? I think it starts, you can even look at an evening or a half day, but it really limits of what you can do. It only allows for quick experimentation or ideation. If you have a very clear technology framework, it might let you do small things, but then nothing can go wrong. So take that with a grain of salt. Hackathons start getting interesting at 8 to 12 hours time commitment, but it is still very compact and requires a very strict framework to produce results. For deeper engagement, I would suggest 24 hours, which allows people, if they choose to work through the night, power through, take a nap in between. The most intense, but also most successful hackathons I've personally experienced are 2 or more days. Typically they're exactly 2 days, but it depends on how you count the weekend. So in countries where your weekend starts on a Friday evening and ends on a Sunday evening, you would have exactly that time frame. It is very intense, but you can get meaningful results, and especially when there are fewer restrictions available in place, then it allows people to be creative and to really come up with great ideas. There's also other formats, week-long hacks or month-long hacks, but those are typically not done full time. Those are happening on the side. If they're driven by a company or by university, they might have some time set where it doesn't conflict with the highest workloads that are anticipated. And in companies, they may even give some limited time off for people to work on the hackathon. It is, however, almost never full time off for the people to work on a hackathon of work. However, there are benefits. It allows for more pivoting on complex ideas that just need to brew and maybe take some days or even weeks to consider and throw out. And there's a risk, however. It's very easy to lose focus, to get distracted, and to just leave the team or leave the team hanging. Talking about the logistics part again. For on-site hackathons, food and catering, logic, travel is very, very important. So on the food side, you want healthy choices, you want to respect dietary restrictions. People are a captive audience during the hackathon. You don't want them to think about, oh, where do I get my food? Food should be enjoyable. It should be an appropriate and welcome distraction, well, not really distraction, a break from intense work. It needs energy in all different forms. Snacks, healthy snacks, please. But also for a lot of people, caffeine, like coffee or energy drinks, are usually very appreciated. Food can help with great ideas and let people interact across teams. Let's say you have a food cart out there and people get food at the cart and interact while placing their order. Or you have communal tables where people eat and they don't just eat on their own on their desk. There are different ways to use food to really lighten up an hackathon. And finally, surprise your participants with food they may have never seen before, right? But also things that are just welcome by the audience. Then accommodations. Participants, mentor, judges may require a place to stay. It starts with how to get there, where to park, how to commute, and safety relevant information for the venue. Have a helpline for emergencies or for stuck travelers. Provide information about local transportation, be it ride sharing or using public transport, or if maybe you shouldn't use public transport. So, some valuable contributors may need help to travel. You may want them to show up, but not everybody who is valuable might have funding to travel. Maybe there's this really brilliant kid for the university on the other side of the country, and you would want to invite them. Can you get some funding to help with the travel? Hackathons typically don't have a lot of funding for those things, but sometimes it really helps to push a hackathon to the next level. Then also look at lodging that's appropriate for the audience. I mean, can get as simple as providing cots, air mattresses, or beanie bags for overnight on-site. But then you really also want to consider security, showers, and hygiene. It's super important. You need to have really very good logistics to keep your place clean, keep the toilets clean, and keep people safe. Look at local volunteer hosts and consider budget options like Airbnb. Consider negotiating discounted rates at local hotels or motels or hostels. And if you're in university towns, talk to local dormitories. Sometimes if it's during the break, there are options there. Content preparation is very important. What can you do as an organizer to get an idea about what is relevant? You could, of course, start researching hot topics in that industry or in that field where you want to do a hackathon about. You can use surveys to attendees to identify specific interest areas. Maybe they come up with ideas that you had no idea about. Then, technology preparation is crucial. Have resources available for relevant technology that could be relevant, from cloud to database to guidance. So provide plumbing code, for example, how to access databases. Participants should not need to learn and to worry about how to do basic things, but focus on creating real new value, business value typically. Compile a list of getting started materials for different technologies that are relevant or most likely relevant, or that you want to encourage them to use. And provide demo environments and cloud resources whenever possible. A lot of teams may come prepared, but a lot of them will start from zero. How to level set is there are different ways to do that. One powerful way is to have a high-profile keynote starting out the event that's inspiring and educational about the subject matter that you want to cover, but also to paint a bigger picture of where we are and where could things go. Then lectures during the hackathon can help to understand a specific subject matter deeper, be it legal, business, or technology. Could even be a primer about a specific technology to get started. Help people to tell impactful stories. That means to provide guidance how to, what is relevant, how to get attention, and do successful pitches. We also need to say what does typically not make a good hackathon. If the approaches are too generic and there's no focus, people just get together and have no idea in which direction they should go, it's not often successful. So I encourage to provide some focus and some guidance to get focus. Just doing a glorified hands-on lab with a very strict framework on what people should do really is not good for a hackathon. Some people call it hackathon, even my friends at Microsoft sometimes call it that way, well, it was just step-by-step instructions how to do a specific task. And that is not good for a hackathon in my opinion. Just don't call it that way. Do it, but call it like it is, hands-on lab. No collaboration kills every hackathon. If there's no teams, if it's just you, typically you don't get good results. Sometimes you might get some value from interacting and from learning from mentors and so on, but the core of a hackathon is to work together. And finally, if there's not enough time to get things done. Time is always tight, time is always precious. But the time frame for a hackathon should be corresponding to the expectations that you're having for the participants to do. Develop that carefully. Don't make the hackathon too short. Don't make it too long if you don't have enough meat to sustain it. Otherwise, people might get lost in the details and might come up with something that's great, but it's not as impactful in relation to the time invested as it could be. Let us talk about hackathons in an organization, be it a business or government or any type of organization. There are cultural requirements, and those are essential. As an organizer who wants to do this internally inside your company, you need to create a safe environment. A hackathon cannot not have judgment. If there are negative repercussions for participants or even bullying for someone not doing good in a new technology, that would not be good. So a lot of effort needs to be in preparation to provide an environment in your organization that reduces judgment, ideally no judgment. And you need to welcome and no fear of failure. While failure might be bad for your day-to-day business, and a hackathon can be a good thing. And that can be very empowering. Maybe that can be your safe zone to try out things that you would not do otherwise in your business. Use a hackathon, use a different framework, use a different feeling how to do things. Make sure that participating in the hackathon is most about learning and not about succeeding to accomplish a specific task. Failure can be success, and we might see later on what that means in one of the examples. Encourage the participation. That means for people to sign up to participate, but also during the hackathon. People need to be involved, not just sign up because they should. That may take a long time. You, as an organizer inside an organization, need to make that hackathon exciting and fun, but also doable considering the workload that people face. Focus on rewarding and not punishing. That means for both the results again, but also for participating. If somebody participates, maybe they get not a financial bonus, but maybe some time off extra, or maybe think of something that rewards your employees or your team members or people in your organization. Something that otherwise they might not get. Doesn't need to be financial always. And finally, a courage to just do it. A hackathon is not a place to overthink things. To get started and try something can be empowering, but it also requires courage, especially if you work in an industry where failure is difficult. Work on that. Experiment with that. Just do it. Internal hackathons. Who should we invite? I put as a first leadership. If you can get leadership not just to sign up in the sense of supporting, but to participate fully as peers, that can be transformational for your organization. It makes people more approachable. It can increase identification with the organization, and it can break hierarchies in a good sense. Of course, people will also learn that the leadership people that are only normal human beings suddenly make mistakes, maybe with a new technology. Maybe they're really not that smart dealing with the technology, but they should be confident enough to do that. The catch is you need full commitment. If leadership only says they participate and then is stuck doing meetings or email or do other things or go home and don't have the same level of real commitment than a regular participant, it could be actually toxic for the team. So I encourage leadership to participate, but really need to have them on board in a full sense. Maybe do leadership to leadership hackathon first, so they experience it amongst themselves if they don't want to expose themselves to their subordinates. In some cultures, in some organizations, there might be a fear to break hierarchies. I think it's good, but I spent a lot of time talking about that because it's also contentious. Cross-department boundary breaking is very powerful and can be really accomplished relatively easy with a hackathon. As an organizer, you can encourage team creation by having participants from different departments collaborate. Ideally, that happens naturally through the ideas and people signing up for the ideas, especially if the ideas are a little bit detached from what people do in their daily jobs and are not a typical duty of the department. However, you can also actively make specific rules, like, okay, each team can only have 2 people of one department, for example. Of course, if it doesn't work, be prepared to relax those rules on the fly, but really try to encourage cross-department collaboration and invite people for that. Also consider some external invitation. Think about invitation business partners or even customers or suppliers. Of course, you need to think about safety and non-disclosure agreements and business secrets. It creates a different environment if those people are present, but for some scenarios, and I have some later on, it can be also very good to collaborate across different companies. Finally, collaborate with universities. Follow-ups with research and development could be enabled by that if you have great ideas. And it is surprisingly an effective hiring tool. There are some companies who really do hackathons successfully, mainly to identify candidates that they would not find otherwise, that they would not see otherwise, whose applications might be lost in that stack of applications, the thousands of applications they're processing. In that way, the engineers in a team might get to know a candidate before that candidate knows that they want to apply at that company. And so it's also, in that sense, an effective recruiting tool, because if the things the company is working on and the teams are cool, then people might want to join that company. Diverse teams are great. Those pictures were taken in Germany, so there's not a lot of diversity in terms of culture diversity in this specific teams, but the teams were still internally quite diverse, as from the really nerdy geeks here in the lower right corner who set up their own lounge to develop, to at least to some level mixed gender teams. I cannot emphasize enough that diverse teams have the best outputs. It's really great to have the most different minds, people who are really deep in technology, but also people who have a completely different viewpoint. I could go as far and say, if you have the janitor join your team, that could be great. They might have ideas into your organization that you didn't have. So do that without judgment. Promote diversity, cultural diversity, organizational diversity, leadership level diversity. All type of diversity can only make your teams better in a hackathon. Of course, it goes back to those safe environments to work in. Judgment-free zones. Work on that. It will make your hackathons great. Now look at impact or value for participants. If you're a participant, of course, you want to get something out of it. But what could that be? How does success look like? It starts simple. You could learn something new. Great. Be it organizational, business, subject matter that you haven't looked at before, or dive into that new technology. You could validate or invalidate something you have been thinking about doing in your work that wasn't directly applicable, or something you were thinking about in the evenings because you always wanted to do it. Maybe you would want to win a prize. Some hackathons have really good prizes. There were hackathons in the United States that sometimes had almost like $1 million prizes, I heard. I've never seen those myself, but a friend of mine told me that he knows somebody who won something like that. But winning a hackathon actually can be a career boost if you do it smartly in your CV and know how to recommend yourself. Finally, not finally, but get energized. Experience the we can do it that a team can have during hackathon, not the daily drag. We can do it. And then break out of your routine. Do something just different. Not 9 to 5. Power through it and disrupt not just yourself, the environment, your way of thinking. Maybe you would even disrupt the business with what you do in the hackathon. That could lead to personal growth. You can gain new confidence in trying things you have never done before. You can gain new insights, be it technology, organizational, even coworkers, getting to know them in a different way. You can reclaim interest and passion. If things were like the same every day, a hackathon, be it internally or externally, can really sometimes reignite passions. And for some people, a hackathon could be a career changer or career step, or could make them really reconsider things they were doing in a positive way. Exposing yourself to new technologies is something that a hackathon can uniquely do, and it's very powerful if you're on the right team to see those technologies work in such a time frame, in such a short time frame, and see ideas come to fruition. See something running maybe that you contributed to, when your organization might have time frames of months to get something done. To get new technologies up and running in days, or sometimes even hours, is exciting. And you recommend yourself to new opportunities and network. Yes, people will notice if you go to a hackathon. If you network effectively and people notice you, that could be a career boost for you. Talking about the networking. It's not only about recommending yourself to the to the upper levels, but meet new people with a shared interest, be it in an internal hackathon or be it in a public hackathon. Maybe the things you were thinking about where it was really hard to find people who care about those things and exchange viewpoints. Then learn about interests of others. Learn about things you have never learned about. Interact with those people you already know, maybe in the organization, but in different ways. Maybe the team lead, you've never seen the team lead code. Or you suddenly find out that the person in accounting actually used to be a database administrator. You never know. Cross-organizational boundaries, as I said. Sometimes it's hard to establish those connections, but in a hackathon you might meet people in that research division that you always wanted to know about, like you said. And finally, interact with business relationships you may have already, be it suppliers or partners or customers. Again, start something new. Validate an idea. Solve a problem. Try out a technology. Experiment with a new subject domain. The list could go on and on and on. Really, hackathons for participants should really focus on doing something new. So we talked about success and how can it look like for you, but often there may be also competitive aspects. So how to be formally successful as a participant? It's important to consider a topic for the hackathon or of the hackathon if published and prepare. So if you already have an impactful story to tell, maybe do that, like a problem you want to solve or an approach you think a success might be successful. Prepare before the hackathons aspects of what you want to tackle. That could be technology, that could be researching the subject matter. In general, it's a good idea to be prepared. It sounds like common sense, but a lot of people just go to a hackathon very unprepared. That's great. If you want to have fun, you can learn a lot. However, the chance of success is a little bit reduced then. So as I said, learning some of the technology, if you have a technologist role in the hackathon, will also be involved in the hackathon will also increase your chances. And experiment before the hackathon. Maybe you want to try out some simple experiments of a technology solution you thought about. Nothing complex, not even a real proof of concept. Just see, does it even make sense what you're thinking about? Team formation. We talked about how to set up a team from an organizer perspective, but what is it if you're inside the team or part of the team? Most important thing is to be very flexible. For example, consider for smaller teams, similar teams, to join forces or share resources when needed. I've seen hackathons where two teams formed that were very, very similar with what they wanted to achieve as an output, but went different routes technology-wise. Still, they had a lot of things they could have shared. In another case, teams were very, very similar in technology, but had different outputs in terms of business. So they could have shared or benefited from sharing some of their technology expertise. In some cases, it can really be as that two teams should be joining forces and build something bigger than their individual ideas. Define how you interact in the team. For example, is there a team lead, a clear team lead, or will you follow a consensus principle? Figure out how the team wants to interact, how the team wants to run itself. It's typically not run from the outside, and you don't have time to find out that the team doesn't work right in the middle. It happens sometimes, but I think there are things you can do to avoid that. That comes to respecting decisions and support each other. Give the team a chance to succeed together, even if you think what they're doing is not a good idea. Even if you think there's a specific technology that you prefer is better. Don't walk away from the team. Teams are usually stronger together. That also means avoiding being the rock star, even if you think you are. And maybe you are. But I tell you what, in some teams, especially in Scrum Agile, a rock star can actually slow the team down. It could lead the team members just defer to the rock star. Defer to the one person who always does everything right, or thinks he or she does everything right. It's usually a he, by the way, but that may change. So, in some cases, that's very, very rare. If you have a rock star on board who takes over the whole team, sometimes it can be necessary to kick out the rock star. So, if you're a rock star, don't be a rock star. Be a team member. For success, understanding the criteria, what defines success for a hackathon that is judged, is important. So understand the jury and the judging criteria. Example of judging criteria could be industry impact, as in healthcare, for example. Will it transform something in that industry? Technology evaluation. Is a technology that's used impactful and strong, future-proof, innovative? Is a solution technology-wise exciting? Team potential plays a big role. If you can demonstrate that your team is cross-functional, diverse, is set up to succeed, has all the team members that, for example, a startup would have to get started to make money, that is usually a good benchmark also for a good team. Consider time to market. A lot of jurors might think about that if they're business-oriented, or if they need to have a solution in the industry soon. Business growth potential is essential. If you can say, okay, we're selling 10 units, even if you sell it fast, if you don't know how to scale up, you don't have a concept or idea, how do you scale it to regional, national, worldwide? Scale up your business is a consideration for hackathons often when you have conversations with jurors. And finally, the financials. Have an idea, what does it cost? Well, and more importantly than what it costs, what you can make. What is the financial benefits of what you want to build? Again, not all hackathons have an economic output. There are things like social policy hackathons, things that want to make the world a better place. But even there are other types of criteria that often have some type of metric associated with it. So who's in the jury? Super important. Not that you should like try to be friends with them, or that you shouldn't be an enemy either, but you don't need to seek out their sympathy or their attention like in advance too much. Just keep it real. But understanding what do the jurors know about the industry, about the type of solutions, or what don't they know? Getting some idea what they likely know. It's of course incomplete, you don't know the jurors that well. But checking out their LinkedIn, if they're a public figure, looking out for things they have done, if they're the university's subject matters they researched, all the things can help you to understand what do they care for. For people who are employed in enterprises, even in an organization, you understand what do they care as part of their main job. What is the subject matter expertise? Are they a healthcare expert? And if so, are they like a surgeon or a lab person? Or do they prescribe medicine? Do they interact with patients at all? Are they administrative? All those things shape the impression the juror has. Their background plays a role. And finally, how might the juror rate judging criteria that they may not be subject matter experts in? I tell you a secret. Jurors so far are not AIs, they're humans. Things like emotions work. Being convincing works. There are a lot of tricks that you can use or can learn regarding how to pitch that we cannot discuss really in that presentation right here, but research about it. For example, winning over with emotion is very, very powerful, and it has been proven that for pitches, emotions trump numbers. So the stories also need to be straightforward. Don't have it to be too convoluted. Get to the point quickly. What is it you want to solve? I want to cure hunger. I want to save Mr. Jones who would have a heart attack if he doesn't get my medicine or my innovation. I want to make sure that Jessica, who goes to school hungry, gets food in school so she can learn. This is emotion, but it's also a clear story. Yeah? Don't lead like with the GDP relationship, with the economy and school expenditures, food, and don't make it too complex. Have simple stories to tell. That will help you with juries and judging criteria. But cover your bases, cover all the judging criteria. Often they say, like, if you don't present, let's say, 5 judging criteria and you only cover 4 of them, you get 0 points. You're only 80% and you might lose the whole thing, even though you're great. So at the hackathon, gauge interest and deliver for your audience. Understand that it's about, when you do people networking, like, see how do people react to what you want to tackle. When you want to find a solution, do other people agree with what you're thinking? Or is it crazy what you're thinking? Like, no, you cannot convince anybody. If you cannot convince anybody in the audience, you probably cannot convince the judges. So seek support for your idea. If you have a technology-driven solution, is the technology interesting and cool? Yes, sometimes there are prizes for the most technical hack, for the best technology output. Does it feel like magic? I mean, a lot of things won't, but they can still be pretty darn impressive if you deliver a working prototype in like 1 or 2 days work. As I said, research about pitch training. How to get attention from the jurors, how to keep their attention, and how to incorporate emotion in your pitch. If you can get the audience on your side, you often get the jurors on your side too. Now, during the hackathons, mentors are important. So validate with your mentors and seek to polish your final presentation during the hackathons. Yeah. So Seek out mentors to cover judging criteria. If you have a mentor that understands business and financials and startups, talk to them about business plans, business models, and things you can incorporate. Make it credible. Ask to give a practice presentation to them. And take feedback seriously. I've personally given feedback sometimes to people and say, well, this is a great idea, but look, for example, I like it, but really think about the business you're trying to build here. If you don't make money, more money than you invest, as simple as that, then it's not a business. And if business is a judging criterion, then you're out. Final presentation. As I said, incorporate emotions and other presentation tricks. There are a lot of things you can do. For example, repeating a word a number of times can be important. If I say quality, and you start with quality being insufficient, then quality, how you improve it, and then quality, how you finally deliver it, and make it consistent and sustainable, then people will understand that the key point is quality, and it will stick in the brain, and the brain reacts to hearing the same word all over. It keeps the attention on you. Cover the judging criteria, as I said, and be convincing, but respect the time box. A lot of hackathons, they might turn off your microphone after the 2 minutes of pitch are over. Very common thing is it's the audience, the organizers will start clapping really loud and kindly escort you off the stage. So respect the time box. If you break the rules in that sense, it might really throw people off and might not get you the grades that you want in your grading system. And be clear what was accomplished in the hackathon. Where can you go from there? Even if things are not working completely in code, if you can say, like, we accomplished this and make it credible and we can go there, then even an incomplete solution can be a successful final presentation. It matters on what you can accomplish in the given time box, and sometimes the time box is too short. Be straightforward about your success and where you can go. Now, what do you do after the hackathon as a minimum? After all this, right, the hackathon is over and people part ways. Worst case, you do nothing, and the hackathon effects might just fizzle. So, as a participant, you want to preserve your results and learnings. That sounds, how do I do that? Well, as simple as that, save your work. But continue reading about it. If it's exciting, make a plan how to keep engaged. If you go back to your normal job, see if you can make some time, extra time, or get some freedom to explore things further that you explored during the hackathon. Follow up on the topics and follow up with people. Yes, it matters. Sometimes a successful topic in the hackathon might become a real business. Keep working with those new network connections you established. As an organization, all the things I mentioned above apply exactly the same way. But the organization has maybe more ways to make them formalized, to introduce them. For the individual, it's sometimes a little bit harder. So identify those interesting and promising outcomes of a hackathon. Maybe there's something transformative there for your business. Maybe a new business idea, maybe a new department, a new product line, a new technology stack, a new hire. There are a lot of things that could be promising that you find in a hackathon if you keep an open mind and are consistent with your management and not just have a hackathon being an entertainment or team building effort. Hackathon can be a lot more. Team building would already be a great success actually, but again, try to see what you can do with the results of a hackathon and take those promising things to the next level. Let me talk about some of my example experiences. So, I was in a bunch of hackathons before. In one of them I was organizing and mentoring. I talked about hackathons across organizations. We've joined forces between two companies. One was a mobile API middleware company, RPO Mart in Germany, and one was a mixed reality company, Industrial Holographics, a startup that deals with HoloLens solutions. We solved integrating middleware technology with Microsoft HoloLens to solve various types of business problems. The participants were actually partially customers. The customers experienced two technologies working together. There was empowerment, that great feeling of accomplishment. It increased trust, business trust. Also, there were a few people from universities and enthusiasts who might get a job at one of the companies at one point. The value for organization was proving that this technology, that was very experimental, was feasible and it was worth developing for that new customer audience. So far, maybe the audience was just mobile phones. Maybe you can use it with mixed reality devices, for example. That was very specific as an example, but just gives you an idea of something that was real. As a participant, wow, I ended up not getting support for my idea. I had this great pitch. Well, I ended up supporting 2 teams that each won a main prize. And I still pursued a smaller version of my own prototype. Guess what? What happened? I'm still working with some of the hackathon participants and pursue the idea in a possible startup. We're working to protect our intellectual property that was improved and developed further after that hackathon. So sometimes it's good to pivot. Don't be stuck up, even if your idea doesn't win, even if you don't find support. See what you can do. I'm not saying don't just do it, but see where you add the most value to the hackathon. It's usually also something where you get the most value out of after the fact. In one case, I mentored and pitched an idea, and I thought it was great. It was at the Life Sciences Meets IT Hackathon in Heidelberg, Germany. And it was a voting-based system. I did not get enough votes for the idea. I was like, nobody wanted to talk to me. But then the idea found a dedicated team that wanted to do it anyways. People started coming to me, hey, we want to do this. Hey, we want to do this. And there was this little loophole. If you have like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 people who want to work a project together, they can do it even if the pitch didn't win. The result was the team won 2 of the 4 prizes, Best Technical Hack and Audience Award, I believe. Yeah, thank you also for Life Science Meets IT Hackathon and for the photographs Tobias Schwert that I got permissions to use. Now, a really, really interesting thing was when I mentored a non-technical team. It was a team of physicians who wanted to prove feasibility of a machine learning approach for stool classification. I poo. Okay, that sounds awkward, but it's real. There was tremendous, tremendous value in this. So the average hospital stay is 1 day longer, at least in Germany, because of problems with digestion. People getting diarrhea or constipations, and their medicine is not working as well. Now what happened is volunteers from other teams jumped in and helped, for example, to creating a little web app to upload hackathons participants' stool pictures anonymously. Would you believe it? Yes, people used that. It's kind of disgusting, but it was really, really incredible how that happened. This project was considered for research funding later on in that university. Final words. Well, what do you do next? I say, seek out well-run hackathons or organize your own. They're fun and can sometimes be life-changing. If there's a hackathon nearby, go to it. If it's even endorsed by a large organization, especially multi-day, try to go to the more professional ones, I would say, and engage deeply. It is such an empowering thing. A success in a hackathon is also a great story. So is a failure if you learn from it. I think when I first got my MVP, my Microsoft Most Valuable Professional Award, it also contributed that I won a prize in a Microsoft hackathon in that year. Okay, my engagement as an MVP is a lot bigger, but those little building blocks can help in your career. And now, the best hackathons are often those that run in unexpected ways, where it's not clear what the outcome is. It's not clear if what you thought you would do turns out completely different. Have an open mind, and hackathons can do great things for you. Thank you for your attention. It was really great to talk to you. Thank you also to our sponsors, to Microsoft for supporting Data Platform Geeks and SQL Server Geeks community initiatives and the Data Platform Summit. Finally, there are ways to win prizes. There's 3 ways to win prizes. Post your selfie with hashtags DPS2020. Give session and conference feedback. Visit our sponsors and exhibitors. And follow us on Twitter at DataGeeks and at Data AI Summit. Again, thank you for attending my sessions about hackathons. My name is Andreas Erben. And have fun at the Data Platform Summit 2020, which is virtual round the clock and empowering data and AI transformation.